Hey folks, in today's Conundrum, we will cover the case of Gary Leon Ridgway, also known as the Green River Killer, an American serial killer convicted of 49 murders. He targeted teenage girls and women in Washington state during the 1980s and 1990s. Most of his victims were sex workers and vulnerable women. Ridgway strangled his victims, dumped their bodies in forested areas, and sometimes returned to have sexual intercourse with them. Despite being a suspect since 1982, he was only definitively linked to the murders through DNA profiling in 2001. Ridgway was arrested, spared the death penalty, and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole in exchange for revealing the locations of still missing women. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please subscribe, and put the notifications bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Gary Leon Ridgway was born on February 18, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Utah, as the second son of Mary and Thomas Ridgway. His upbringing was troubled, witnessing violent arguments between his domineering mother and father, who often complained about sex workers. Ridgway struggled with bedwetting until the age of 13, and his mother would wash his genitals after each incident. As an adolescent, he harbored conflicting emotions of anger and sexual attraction towards his mother, even fantasizing about killing her. Ridgway faced academic challenges due to dyslexia, repeating a year in high school. At 16, he committed a disturbing act by stabbing a 6-year-old boy, who miraculously survived the attack. In adulthood, Ridgway graduated from Tye High School in 1969 and married his high school girlfriend, Claudia Craig. Joining the United States Navy, he was deployed to Vietnam and saw combat on a supply ship. During his military service, Ridgway engaged in unprotected sexual encounters with sex workers, resulting in contracting gonorrhea. His marriage to Claudia ended within a year due to infidelity. Described as friendly yet peculiar, Ridgway's subsequent marriages also crumbled due to unfaithfulness. His second wife, Marcia Winslow, accused him of placing her in a chokehold. While embracing religion during his second marriage, Ridgway paradoxically continued soliciting sex workers and desired his partners to engage in public and inappropriate sexual activities, sometimes in the very areas where he would later dispose of his victims' bodies. Despite his religious beliefs, he had an insatiable sexual appetite, demanding frequent sex from his ex-wives and ex-girlfriends, often in public or woodland settings. Ridgway had a conflicted relationship with sex workers, expressing both complaints about their presence in his community and regularly availing himself of their services. At his plea hearing, Ridgway claimed to hate prostitutes and voiced a reluctance to pay for sex. This contradiction between his desires and religious beliefs has been a subject of speculation. Ridgway fathered a son named Matthew with his second wife, Marcia, in 1975. Gary Ridgway unleashed a reign of terror throughout the 1980s and 1990s in the Seattle and Tacoma regions of Washington. His heinous acts claimed the lives of at least 71 teenage girls and women. Ridgway himself admitted to losing count of his victims. The majority of his gruesome murders took place between 1982 and 1984, and primarily targeted sex workers and runaways whom he lured from the Pacific Highway south. To gain their trust, Ridgway would show the victims a picture of his son, creating a false sense of security. However, once engaged in sexual activity, he would abruptly wrap his forearm around their necks from the front while using the other arm to tightly pull back, strangling them to death. His killing sprees took place in various locations, including his own home, truck, and secluded areas. After the murders, he disposed of the bodies in wooded areas near the Green River, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and other dump sites across South King County. The Portland, Oregon area also suffered from Ridgway's violent acts, with 2 confirmed victims and 2 additional suspected victims found there. The bodies were often left in clusters, sometimes posed, and typically nude. Shockingly, Ridgway would return to the deceased victims and engage in sexual intercourse with their lifeless bodies. He claimed that engaging in necrophilia reduced his need to seek living victims, ultimately limiting his exposure to being caught. Due to the long delay in discovering the bodies, only skeletal remains were found, leaving 2 victims unidentified. To further confound investigators, Ridgway deliberately contaminated the dump sites with gum, cigarettes, and personal belongings belonging to others. He even transported some victims' remains across state lines into Oregon to obfuscate the authorities. In the early 1980s, the Green River Task Force was established by the King County Sheriff's Office to investigate these gruesome murders. Notable members of the task force, including Robert Keppel and Dave Reichert, sought insights from incarcerated serial killer Ted Bundy regarding the psychology and behavior of the unknown killer. Bundy astutely suggested that the murderer would return to the dump sites to engage in sexual acts with the victims, a theory that proved to be accurate. FBI Special Agent John E. Douglas also played a significant role in the investigation by developing a profile of the suspect. Ridgway's criminal activities first drew attention in 1982 and 2001 when he was arrested on charges related to prostitution. These incidents led authorities to suspect his involvement in the Green River killings. Despite passing a polygraph test in 1984, his actions raised suspicions. In 1987, crucial hair and saliva samples were collected from Ridgway, eventually serving as key evidence in his arrest. Around 1985, Ridgway began a relationship with Judith Mawson, who became his third wife in 1988. Mawson, in a revealing interview, disclosed that when she moved into Ridgway's house, she noticed the absence of carpet, which investigators believed he had used to wrap a body. She also mentioned that Ridgway would often leave early for work, ostensibly for overtime pay. Mawson speculated that he might have utilized those early morning shifts to carry out some of his murders. Astonishingly, she claimed to have had no knowledge of Ridgway's crimes until authorities contacted her in 1987. She staunchly maintained her innocence and believed that her role as his wife had inadvertently saved lives by keeping him content. In 2001, DNA profiling was conducted on the samples collected in 1987, providing the crucial evidence needed for Ridgway's arrest. On November 30, 2001, while at work at the Kenworth truck factory, Ridgway was apprehended by the police. The DNA evidence conclusively linked him to the semen found at the crime scenes, confirming his guilt. The original indictment included 4 victims: Marcia Chapman, Opal Mills, Cynthia Hines, and Carol Ann Christensen. Later, 3 additional victims, Wendy Caulfield, Deborah Bonner, and Deborah Estes, were added to the indictment after microscopic spray paint spheres, unique to a specific brand and composition used at the Kenworth factory, were identified as evidence connecting Ridgway to their deaths. In August 2003, Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was moved from a maximum security cell to a minimum medium security facility. News reports indicated that his lawyers were finalizing a plea bargain that would spare him the death penalty in exchange for his confession to several of the Green River murders. On November 5, 2003, Ridgway entered a guilty plea to 48 charges of aggravated first-degree murder as part of the plea bargain. In his statement, Ridgway admitted to killing all of his victims in King County, Washington, and dumping the remains of 2 women near Portland to confuse the police. The plea agreement contained the names of 41 victims, who would not have been part of the case if not for the agreement. King County prosecuting attorney Norm Maleng explained that the deal was made to uncover the truth, acknowledging that Ridgway did not deserve mercy but emphasizing that the resolution was intended to bring closure. On December 18, 2003, Ridgway was sentenced to 48 life sentences without the possibility of parole, with an additional 10 years for each victim for tampering with evidence. In total, he received 48 life sentences, plus an additional life sentence when the remains of his 49th victim were found. Ridgway cooperated with prosecutors, leading them to the remains of 3 victims in 2003. The remains of Pamionette Avent, Marie Malvar, and April Buttram were discovered as a result of his information. In November 2005, the skull of one of Ridgway's victims was found by a hiker, and it was later determined to belong to Tracy Winston, leading to Ridgway's 49th life sentence. During his confessions, Ridgway admitted to more confirmed murders than any other American serial killer. Over the course of several months, he confessed to 48 murders, with 42 of them matching the police's list of probable Green River Killer victims. In some of his initial interviews, he claimed responsibility for the deaths of 65 women. Ridgway revealed that he targeted prostitutes because they were easy targets and admitted to having sex with the victims' bodies after killing them. He claimed that burying the later victims helped him resist the urge to commit necrophilia. Ridgway referred to murdering young women as his career. Ridgway was initially placed in solitary confinement at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. However, in 2015, he was transferred to USP Florence High, a high-security federal prison in Colorado. Following public outcry and discussions with Governor Jay Inslee, Ridgway was brought back to Washington to be easily accessible for ongoing murder investigations. He returned to the Washington State Penitentiary in October 2015. Thank you to all who have stuck with me until the end of the video. All small creators like me have certain goals in mind when we embark on this journey, and reaching 1/4 of that goal is my first significant milestone. Since we all share a common interest in similar topics, my idea is to organize a giveaway for a 1-year Curiosity Stream subscription plan once we reach 250 subscribers. This giveaway will serve as a token of appreciation for your support thus far. I'm genuinely grateful to have you all here with me. Comment down below if you have any recommendations for my future uploads. I am Alex, and this was Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe.